Hello.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome back to another fun episode
of Hardy's Book Club.
Hardy's Book Club.
Oh, yeah.
What are we reading this month, Rossi?
Well, shall I go and get it from what is behind us?
We got shelves!
We finally got shelves! Finally!
And this is why we're a week late with this episode. Sorry.
I thought it would be faster than it was.
Yeah,
it
sorry.
All right.
But this month we are talking about...
A Little Hatred by Joe Abercrombie.
Yeah. This is a beautiful first edition, first print.
Yes, but unfortunately we got it after we met him.
Otherwise
so
we would have got it signed.
We would have got it signed.
But it's still a beautiful edition nonetheless.
How about there?
Yeah, we'll just pop it there.
Oh, we're so professional.
Anyway. This is your fair dues warning, folks. This video will be full of spoilers for A Little Hatred by Joe Abercrombie and...
Also, full of spoilers for the First Law Trilogy. Which comes before this. It will make references to characters who appear in both trilogies.
Yeah. And potentially to characters who appear in the first trilogy who don't appear in this trilogy. Mm-hmm. And you can draw your own conclusions from that.
Yes.
So if you've read this but you've not read First Law, first of all, what are you doing? Go and read it.
Looking at you, Andrew.
Yeah, Andrew.
It's okay because we've got his book in the background somewhere over there.
Somewhere over there.
There it is. Yeah, it's fine. Okay, we're good. So this is the first book in the Age of Madness trilogy, which is the second trilogy of Joe Abercrombie's trilogies. In between the two trilogies, there were 3 standalone books.
Yeah.
Which I don't think... Have you read any of them?
Nope.
No, neither. So it did make references to some things that happened in between the two, which was interesting. But mostly our experience with Joe Abercrombie had been the First Law.
Yeah. If it did make any explicit references to the standalones, they went over our heads because we've not read them. Sorry, Joe.
Yeah. And maybe that's a good place to start. Knowing that how well we know the First Law, because we love all those books. Well, do you think that you could read this book without having read the First Law?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I reckon you could.
I think that there were certain things about this book that made it more fun for having read the First Law.
Yeah. The references to characters that were in First Law that are also in this.
Yes.
So Ardy, Glokta,
Giselle.
Bayaz. The first time that Bayaz turns up on the ship,
sounding like Santa.
and we were like, oh.
I recognise that bald man.
Yeah.
It's really, you really highly benefit from having read.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I think you can read this as a self-contained trilogy without having read the First Law. But I do think that you will gain a lot from having read the First Law. And shall
we do a quick comparison as well?
Yeah.
Because I know a lot of people say the blade itself... I could get it. It's not there on the shelf. The blade itself is not the strongest start to a trilogy. So how do you think it compares to A Little Hatred?
Did you just put our first edition of the blade itself on the floor?
I should pick it up.
Yeah.
We're a professional outfit.
I think that the blade itself, he was laying the foundations for the entire world.
Yeah.
And as a trilogy, the First Law trilogy starts slow and ramps up.
Yeah, for sure.
Whereas this, you kind of, for us, having read the First Law already, you go in already having that understanding.
Yeah.
So it picks up really quite fast.
Yeah. As I think... this book is probably, if you compare it as the start of a trilogy, it is far stronger, far more self-contained story.
Yeah.
Has an arc, which the blade itself didn't really have.
No.
And is for really benefits for having those things. So yeah, I do think that this is the better of the two starts to a trilogy. And honestly, I'm just preempting my score here. I think this might be one of the best books that Joe Abercrombie has written that I've read. To be honest.
Of the 4 that you've read?
Of the 4 I've read. Yes, I know he's written 9, plus the young adult one, so that's an extra 3-ish. I know he's written a lot of books.
Yeah.
But the 4 that I've read, this is probably, I think, his strongest work. Although, Last Argument of Kings, I think I slightly prefer, but we'll get into that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, let's get to the official questions. We've kind of digressed already.
I mean, what do you expect in a Hardy's Book Club video?
Yes.
Other than digressions.
We've kind of already covered what did you know about the book before you picked it up.
Yeah.
What surprised you most about the book?
Okay. I was surprised that so many characters actually make a reappearance. I think I expected it to be further along. 60 years or 100 years afterwards, because I knew going into it that it was a book about the Industrial Revolution.
Yeah.
And, the setting of the first book is, I guess you could call it, it almost feels kind of like high Renaissance, at least in Adua. And, 30 years on from the Renaissance is not the Industrial Revolution. So if you were comparing it directly to European history, I don't think... I think my expectation was that it was going to be later on. So to get to see characters show up that I would have thought would have died in the meantime.
I was surprised.
Surprising.
I was surprised, especially when Glokta showed up.
Yeah, because I
thought he was not long for the world.
I really thought. To be honest, I was. There was that point right at the end of Last Argument of Kings where I was like, "Oh, Glokta's about to die." And so if I'd known that he was going to show up in these books, then that ending would have been less impactful.
Yeah.
So maybe don't read a synopsis for these books if you haven't finished reading the First Law. Here's the thoughts. That was probably one of the biggest things that surprised me. How about you, Laura?
I agree. Yeah, completely agree.
Mm-hmm.
I can't really build on that.
Okay.
I thought it was surprising that it was the first generation following the events of the First Law.
But there is something really fun about seeing characters grown up or grown, old versions of the young characters.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting that it was literally Jazal's son.
Yeah.
And daughter.
Oops. That's one of those things we were also talking about of like, if you've read the First Law, it makes your enjoyment of their tryst.
It was painful. It was so cringe.
It was like every 5 minutes, like The Office look to camera sort of cringe feeling. Yeah.
Oh man, so bad, but it was so good.
We might talk about this later, but I genuinely think this is the most amount of cringe I've ever felt in a book ever.
Honestly.
And I kind of love it for it.
Oh, it was painful, but it was so good. So how did the author use setting and atmosphere to enhance the fantasy and mood of the story?
So naturally you have this industry.
Yeah.
And so everything now is kind of built around, factories, smoke, dirt, exploitation of workers. And so what was sort of more of a medieval kind of grungy, muddy world in the First Law is now an oily world. It's a sooty world. So there is definitely a different feeling. In some senses, I think the world is the world almost doesn't quite feel the same. It's just the characters that bring the continuity. What do you think?
Agree.
Anything to add?
It was a very quick shift. And I think, again, that is why I was so surprised that it was only one generation along, that we've gone from a pre-industrial world to deep in the midst of the Industrial Revolution. And it has a whole different feel and tone to the First Law Trilogy, which is very much like mud under your nails, running through the forest, bear skins. And
you still have that to a degree in England.
Yeah, but this feels more like it's a bit steampunk almost.
It is. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, this feels much more steampunk. This feels much more revolutionary. Whereas First Law was, sword fighting at dawn. This is a completely different flavour. It's weird. It's kind of familiar, but distinct.
The bringing it into like the revolution aspect, like not only there being the Industrial Revolution, but then also the first signs of revolution of the population in Valbeck. And what Joe Abercrombie does really efficiently and very effectively is just proving just how much the Industrial Revolution has just completely changed everyone's lives and driven people into either extreme poverty or extreme wealth, and the horrible ways that people are suffering as a consequence of that. One scene that really stuck with me and really made me feel horrible afterwards, I think, was when the kid dies in the tube. Yeah. In the pipe.
Oh, it's so awful.
The what's the word? The radicalizing moment for Gun Abroad. That's really kind of, I think, sets the tone for this world.
He was an interesting character.
Gun Abroad's fantastic.
Yeah.
We'll talk about characters in a bit. But I can't wait to talk about Gun Abroad. He's so good.
How did the author present the magic system in the book? Did they do a good job of explaining how it worked and what its rules and limitations were? And did it make sense and fit with the story?
Well, that's an interesting one, because things have really changed since the first one. In the first one, Bayaz randomly makes a man explode. But none of that magic's in this.
No.
It's all through Rikke, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I was just thinking, really the only magic in this is Rikke with her long eye. Is there any other magic in this?
No, but not that I remember. Maybe talk a bit about what's that all like?
So that is essentially she's got foresight. She can see things that are going to happen or that have happened. She can use that to her advantage. She uses it to assist Leo Dan Brock, who we'll get to. I have opinions. It's kind of a blessing and it's a curse for her. It causes her to have fits. It causes her to lose control of her bowels. People call her like the mad hill witch. I think she is the most fascinating, fantastic character. I love Rikke.
Yeah.
So much. Yeah. Love her.
Her relationship with the Dogman, being her dad, is really interesting as well. Like the Dogman in the first books, the Dogman, is promoted to leader very quickly, and it seems like such an unlikely role for him because he doesn't, but Logan spots his leadership qualities, and so to get to see him in that role with Rikke as his daughter was really interesting. Again, we're moving into characters too soon, but I highlighting that while we're thinking about it. So yeah, magic wise, I love one of the things I love about Rikke's long eye is her seeing seeing the future overlaid on the present. So she's seeing people walking around. Like the scene that really that I think is going to stick with me forever is when the nail appears when she's watching out through the woods and she's like, don't you see those guys? Yeah. And the nail is got this blonde spiky up hair and you kind of got images of like Celtic warriors.
And everyone's like, are you mad? Yeah. Like, what are you talking about? There's nobody there.
That was such a good scene. So well constructed, so impactful, such clear imagery. Really sticks in your mind. Love it.
I mean, Joe Abercrombie always goes light on magic.
Yeah.
And I think it's great.
Yeah.
It doesn't need a lot of magic.
That's my preferred, I think, magic system as well.
Agree. Me too.
Yeah.
How did the main character or characters change or grow throughout the story?
Okay, so we got Savine.
Probably
the main character of the story.
I love Savine.
She starts out being very sort of...
kind of a brat.
A bit of a brat. So clearly kind of... She has this advantage in business.
She's very privileged.
Yeah, a bit of nepotism perhaps going on there.
Defo nepo baby.
Yeah, and doesn't really have much of an insight into the morals of what she's doing.
Nope.
And then she has the ultimate journey through the world she's created.
Yeah. Yeah, she's in Valbeck during the uprising.
Yeah. And the thing that surprised me the most about that is that by the end of the book, she hasn't changed at all.
Nope, not one bit. She's traumatised by it, clearly, but...
sniffing pearl dust all the time.
No, she's not changed at all.
She's just the same person, just with more trauma.
Yeah.
Which is quite interesting.
That doesn't kill you doesn't necessarily make you stronger. It may just traumatize you.
Yeah.
Sad but true.
Another character who hasn't grown into himself at all, Leo.
Oh. What a frat boy.
Yep.
I just think, God.
Has absolutely no self-awareness.
None at all.
Self-insight.
None at all.
Does not realise he's gay.
No, he's definitely gay.
100%.
100%. And what's his friend's name that's obviously in love with him?
I now can't remember. It was on the tip of my tongue a minute ago. But yeah, he is probably, I think, the most frustrating character in this book.
Oh my goodness.
But still interesting. We're touching on that, like, even lack of character growth can be an interesting tool. Giving characters opportunities to grow and them choosing not to is a really interesting choice. I think that's great.
Hopefully he'll grow in the next one.
Yeah. I guess the one... Okay, I said that he doesn't have any self-insight or self-awareness. He has enough insight to be able to say to Stale Nightfall that what he's interested in is fame.
Yeah.
And that he thinks Stale Nightfall is also interested in fame and glory. So he knows himself that well, but clearly doesn't know a lot else about himself.
No.
Makes him interesting.
Orso
is
I love
great.
Orso, and I didn't expect to love Orso so much.
I think he's
probably
the best one. Yeah.
I think he's such a sweetheart. He has self-awareness.
He does.
He's an interesting juxtaposition to Leo.
Yeah.
Who has none at all. Also, he knows that he's a wastrel.
Yeah.
Even though I don't think he is, really. He is at least a kind man.
Yeah.
He's a kind-hearted person who cares for people.
Highly aware of his flaws.
Yeah. He's very self-deprecating.
Yeah.
He's aware of his own privilege.
And a sweetheart.
And he's just, I want to give him a big cuddle.
He doesn't deserve to fall in love with his sister.
Not...
He is great though, isn't he?
I love him. He's so sweet. What a sweetheart.
I like that Leo also kind of, when Leo finally meets him, he also kind of realises there's that moment where they're waiting for the
triumph.
For the triumph where Leo is basically like, this guy's cool. I like this guy.
Yeah. And also it's like, I should hate this guy. I should hate him. He's clearly been screwing Savine.
Yeah.
He's stolen my triumph. You know, everyone's kissing his ass, but he's just a kid with no self-awareness. And also has enough self-awareness and awareness of others to recognise that. I think also it's lovely. And maybe I'll eat my words by the end of this trilogy.
See what he's like as king.
Yeah. This is the thing. We do need to talk about Savine and Orso. I would start when this whole thing started, and like they were so clearly so in love and so perfect for each other. I was thinking, I did not have Abercrombie down as romantasy, and then I thought this book is called A Little Hatred. This is definitely not going to work out.
They're so lovey-dovey.
It's so sweet. I was like, oh. I don't like romantasy, but I was like, it melted my cold, dead heart.
Yeah.
And then I thought, hang on. Ardy was f***ing the king.
Yeah. That's when it twigged.
Oh no.
And you can see it kind of like, there is a sense of like impending dread.
Crystallizing moment. Yeah, you're like, oh no. The penny drops.
Isn't it great? Isn't it great that moment though gets to happen from that Ardy gets to be the person who reveals that to Savine, that like Ardy is the perfect character to go, oh no.
And Stephen Pacey narrating it was so perfect. What was Sabine's line? She was like,
oh, God.
I'm the king's bastard. My father's not my father, and I've been sucking my brother's cock.
It's that okay. So I don't think either of us were expecting this book to be so funny. It was so funny.
So many lines where we just both like had to just stop and just
just pause the number of times the word quim is used to incredible comedic effects. But then also the number of times the C word is used, which I'm not saying because I don't want this video to be demonetized. It's a vulgar book. It is incredibly vulgar.
I think it's the only word in the English language that I wouldn't use.
Yeah. It's okay, so I wouldn't recommend it for everyone.
No.
If you're of light sensibilities. For whatever reason, it was exactly the book we wanted.
It was so funny. There was a bit where... So there's several long, drawn-out sex scenes that I also wasn't expecting.
That Stephen Pacey gets to narrate with great relish.
And there's the one when Orso has ridden to Savine's rescue and he's just proposed and she hasn't said yes, she's just dragged him to the bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
And it says that she mews like a cat trying to be let in.
Yes.
And that is so visceral because we have a very vocal cat.
Oh man! I mean, Joe Abercrombie, just a man at his
at the top of his
the
game.
top of his game with this book.
Perfect. He had such a riot writing this, I'm sure.
Yeah. So the cringe factor of that relationship is in itself a form of conflict.
Yeah.
That the tension gets resolved.
Yeah.
When the cringe
the whole love triangle
is solved.
As well.
Yeah. Oh God.
The love triangles when Orso starts shagging Rikke and
Savine starts shagging Leo.
Oh man.
That's a love quadrilateral, that is.
Oh dear. What is Savine doing?
I guess that
Come on, girl. You
is,
can do better than that.
It's a resolution, but it's not a satisfying one.
Oh no.
No.
She could do better.
Yeah.
Honey, she's rebounding.
Rebounding heavy.
I just hope she doesn't end up with him.
Oh, that would be cringe. That would be almost as cringe as Logan and Farrow. Logan and Farrow, which is really cringe.
Oh man.
Joe Abercrombie can write cringe.
So if you're watching, which I know there's a very slim chance that you are, who hurt you? We love you, but what the bro?
Yeah. Another conflict and tension point was, of course, the simmering tension of people's exploitation, then going into that revolution scene in Valbeck.
Yeah, back to the serious stuff.
Yeah.
Moving away from the use of the word quim and back to political insurrection.
All of that kind of building tension. And then the release came as a surprise when, I can't remember what his name is now, the representative of the Inquisition in Valbeck was basically, when he says that line that the revolution is essentially happening that night, that day, like, what a kind of an incredible release of that tension. Like, you know, you're expecting it to build throughout the whole book and then happen in the next one or whatever.
Yeah.
But the way it kind of all collapses in one go, and then the conflict being who's going to make it out, what's going to happen to all the innocents involved in this. And it goes really dark places. And that I think was a really effective moment.
Have mentioned in previous videos that I have a big working class chip on my shoulder. I sympathised enormously with the rebels. But at the same time, Joe Abercrombie is a very talented writer. And I wanted Savine to get out alive. And I don't know why. Because I should, but for her sins, I should hate her. And if I had been in Valbeck, I would have been a breaker. For sure. I would have been one of the 200...
Would you been a breaker or a burner? Probably a burner. I think the interesting thing is, like, the story of the breakers is told through Gunnar Broad's eyes.
I love Gunnar Broad.
And Gunnar Broad, I was really expecting him to turn out to be, like, that his story was going to be him becoming the leader of this revolution.
Yeah.
That there was going to be a sort of a Lenin story. I've been reading a lot of biographies of Lenin recently, for my own writing. And I was expecting it to be like him being radicalized and then becoming the leader. I wasn't expecting him to go in a completely different direction and end up being Savine's hired muscle by the end. That was an interesting way through.
Yeah.
But I think he was the right lens, pun intended, to tell the story of the breakers through, because he's sympathetic. Like, yes, he's hyper violent, but only in moments where, you know, his family is threatened or where he's been brought to a point of rage, and most of the time he can keep it suppressed. And the way he kind of, every time he gets violent, he takes his glasses off and folds them up and puts them in his pocket.
You notice I'm not wearing my glasses.
Yeah. So I think Gun Abroad is a really interesting character, and I'm interested to see what happens to him in the next book.
And then obviously alongside Gun Abroad, there's Vic, who is like a plant of Glokta's from the Inquisition, who is sent to Valbeck to root out any breakers, but she arrives like on the day that the lid blows off. Which makes for a really interesting twist in her story. Yeah.
Oh, the best moment I think of her character was actually Glokta reflecting on her, that because she didn't want to accept the larger room at the end and didn't want to accept any gifts, that clearly she didn't, like, there's still that conflict in her, that she is doing all these things for the Inquisition, that she is kind of very loyal to the Inquisition, and yet you can see that she feels guilty for it all, or that she's buried that guilt.
Well, she was in the... Was she Gurkish?
Yeah.
She was in the camps in Gurkle. So she's got that really interesting conflict. Are there any other secondary characters that you think are interesting, that you're interested in seeing how they develop?
Well, all of the secondary characters in this book are the primary characters in the previous trilogy.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting to see what happens to them, but they've already done their development.
That's true. Yeah.
So I didn't really feel like I needed to see any of them grow further, because we've already seen them grow to where they are. Interesting to see Giselle killed off at the end.
Oh, yeah.
That was a surprise.
I did turn to Ross and say, why aren't I sad that Giselle's dead? we were with him for like however many hours through the First Law.
Well, he was...
he was always a bit of a
yeah.
Best thing he did was produce Orso.
Yeah. And Orso was great.
I really like Orso.
Yeah. I'm interested to understand why. So it was clearly implied that it was Bayaz behind Giselle being killed or dying, which is interesting because it seemed to me that Giselle was a very stable ruler of the Union. So why
kill him off?
Why kill him off?
Are there any characters that you wish you could give advice to?
You definitely have this, I'm sure.
Savine, just don't get involved with Leo Danbrock. Come on, girl. Like, come on. First of all, he's like 10 years younger than you. And you can do better. Okay, he's hot. He's got all the emotional development of like... Of a 20-year-old who's just come out of his mother's wing, who has made his name by hitting things. Come on.
Yeah, and likewise to Leo Danbrock. Although I feel like any advice you could give Leo Danbrock, he wouldn't listen to.
Oh no.
Be like, mate, there's a reason why you find the company of men, more satisfying than the company of women. Why you understand men better. Yeah. Okay.
We are a LGBT plus supporting household.
Yes.
And a safe space for all.
Cheers to that. Are there any favourite scenes that we haven't mentioned that you want to bring up?
It's a long book.
It is a quite long book.
There were so many scenes that were so good that I almost wish I'd made notes.
Yeah. I'm going to say, I can't think of any filler in this book.
No.
But all the scenes is all killer, no filler.
So a lot of the scenes with Queen Therese.
Oh, yeah.
I think she was amazing, actually.
Yeah.
The scene where Queen Therese interrupts Orso and Rikke.
Yes.
I was howling.
Yeah, that was really good.
So good.
That was really good.
She was like, forging a new alliance with the North. And Rikke's like, it is a very important alliance. She's like holding a sheet up over her tits.
I like that she mentioned like she's holding it up and then she like wants to pull it up further over her head. That's great.
It's so good.
It's such a good scene.
Amazing. I think Queen Therese is so funny.
Underrated character.
Yeah, I think she's so funny. I love her. And just generally the sex positivity in this book, I just think it's fantastic. Yeah. Rikke is so like sexually liberated, and there's no judgment at all.
When she and Orso get it on, and she's like, I hope that's going to involve.
Yeah, he's like, shall we go for a walk around the gardens? And she's like, as long as it ends in the bedroom.
She knows what she wants.
Yes, I fully respect it.
Yeah.
I was like, what a slag. We love it. How did you feel about the ending?
The ending being that Giselle dies.
Yeah.
So we mentioned that briefly.
And Orso is king. Savine is essentially having a breakdown.
I think it winds up quite well, and quite satisfyingly, actually. It leaves all the characters in an interesting place for the next book. And you can see that Joe Abercrombie clearly wrote this trilogy as a trilogy. I mean, he says this in interviews, that he actually wrote these 3 books and then sent them to the publisher.
Yeah.
He had that in mind from the beginning, and you can see how that has worked really well with where he's left it at the end of this book. So I think it was quite satisfying. Obviously, you don't get the closure that you get at the end of the trilogy.
No.
But that is fine.
Because there's 2 more books to enjoy.
Yeah.
2 more books to come. Themes.
Okay, so obviously, we've talked about revolution. I think that's a fascinating theme.
So interesting.
Yeah. And the way that it descends into anarchy, rather than a organized. So like you have those 2 competing groups, the breakers and the burners. And the breakers, I think, do want some semblance of order, and then the burners are just like, let's anarchy. Let's
burn it.
Yeah, destroy the old.
Yeah.
And don't seem to have any idea of what the new is going to be.
Interesting parallels to real life revolution.
Yeah, for sure. I think we also mentioned this, but like the exploration into the psychology, what brings someone to the point of deciding to pick up their pitchfork and riot, what leads them to that place, and then also the helplessness of not being able to actually defeat the power. Those are just really fascinating kind of ideas to explore.
Yeah.
I hope that we get to see more of it. But it's not really interested in the question of, is revolution good or bad?
No.
It is interested in, I think, the rights of workers, and interested in. I mean, you can see that also reflects on what happens as a result of his intervention, with regret. And so clearly, there is at this book a moral core of, standing up for people, for their rights, for their right not to be oppressed. I think that's all fairly admirable.
Yeah. I don't think you can draw a direct comparison to any real life rebellion or real life conflict without doing a disservice to the book or doing a discredit to any revolutionary movement.
Yeah.
Or just wildly oversimplifying real world events.
So if you could ask Joe Abercrombie any specific question about this book, which we hadn't finished reading by the time we actually met him, so we missed this opportunity. But let's say we could get it back in the room.
Yeah.
What would you ask him?
I would ask him if this were based upon any real life rebellion or conflict. I don't think that it is.
I think he once said that there's elements of the French Revolution in there, but that's kind of such a it's probably the best example of a revolution in this sort of technological era.
Yeah.
Obviously with shades of the industrial revolution, which isn't the same revolution, obviously.
No.
But shades of different elements in there. But also, I remember
Russian Revolution was broadly.
Yeah, I was less industrial, and that was more due to the autocracy of the Tsar, and
but it was early modern. It was like 19.
That was 1917.
Yeah, it was just.
The second one, the first attempt was 1905.
Yeah, but it was the early 1900s.
So okay, I mean you're straddling 2 revolutions there really. It's sort of halfway between the French Revolution and the Russian Revolution in terms of technology.
Yeah.
It's interesting. But there are no guns.
No, that's odd.
I think he said somewhere that was a deliberate choice of you can actually just choose not to have guns.
Because I mentioned earlier that it's quite steampunk, but in my mind steampunk is all gunpowder.
Yeah.
So it's not really.
So maybe we need to read Brian McClellan's Powder Mage
maybe.
series for more of that.
Well, who was it that was telling me to read that?
It was definitely Mayor, definitely Sam Harrison. Those two folks love it.
Yeah. If you're not subscribing to Sam Harrison...
Yeah, get on it.
You should be.
And come join Andrew Watson's Discord server, because we love talking about books in there.
Yeah, and there's some really interesting good folks.
That sums up, I guess, what I'd want to ask him. I'd want to talk about the history and his inspirations like that. So kind of which figures in history perhaps influence the figures in this book, because there are some archetypes I think they're interesting to delve into.
Definitely.
Okay, so would you then recommend this book to someone?
100%, yeah. If they're not, of a delicate disposition.
Yeah, and as long as they've read the First Law.
Yeah. Which I think most people that we're friends with probably have.
I think I'd actually almost recommend it even if they hadn't read the First Law, but I would also combine go and read First recommendation. Yeah. So what are you doing? This is the greatest modern fantasy trilogy. Andrew. For sure, the caveats are that this is a very vulgar book, and that might. I don't want to say it's going to offend people. Well, it probably would offend some people, but it might not be your taste. And also, if you have any low tolerance for cringe, this book is going to just... It's pretty cringe. You're not going to enjoy that. I can't watch like X Factor or anything like that because I'm just like, oh, it's just so cringy. Yeah. But I love this. I lapped it up. Yeah. Okay. Rating the book. So, what do you rate this book? You go first while I'm thinking. I would rate this book, even though he's not in this, I would rate this book 9 fingers out of 9 fingers. Because I think it is basically flawless. I can't think of anything I don't like about it. I think the only thing that makes me prefer The Last Argument of Kings is that it's the end of a trilogy rather than the start. And so you get even more catharsis. So in terms of the quality of the book, it's an easy full marks. But there are, I think, books I prefer, despite it being perfectly well wound together. Any thoughts? I would give it 17 of Savine's wigs out of 17 of Savine's wigs. The ones made with real hair. Yeah. I thought it was pretty much perfect. It's a really, really good book. It made me laugh out loud multiple times. It was great. A really rollicking good time. A rollicking good time. Rollicking good time was had by all. Yes. I really enjoyed it. It was fantastic. It was really good to see some recurring characters from the First Law. Yeah. I can't wait to get started. And what's the next one? Is it The Trouble with Peace? The Trouble with Peace. Yeah. I love Orso so much. We hope for good things for Orso. I hope I love him. Please. He's my new book boyfriend. Who was your old book boyfriend? Fitz. Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, that's because he's wounded. Yeah. And you are have a saviour complex. Yeah. Did this discussion change your rating at all? No. I loved it. We knew from about halfway through this was going to be a full marks book. Yeah. Yeah. I have to say, actually, early on, I was struggling to follow all the different tracks. But it comes together in a way. It comes together so beautifully. That I'm still giving it full marks. Okay. All right. Cool. So that's that. That's our book club for March, and which are releasing halfway through April. Hey. Have you read A Little Hatred? What did you think of it? If you have read it, if you haven't read it, why not? Mm-hmm. Has this discussion persuaded you to potentially read it? What are we reading next month, Rossi? Good question, Laura. Shall we have a look at the shelf? I have some suggestions. I want to suggest The Book That Wouldn't Burn, Mark Lawrence. We don't have that, but yeah, that's not a bad shout. So possibly we'll be reading that. I'm happy with that choice. Shall we do it? Let's do it. Okay, The Book That Wouldn't Burn. The Book That Wouldn't Burn. By Mark Lawrence is going to be our book for April. We better get cracking because it's already the 11th. Yeah. Okay. Follow us on Instagram, on TikTok, at Hardy's Books. Yeah. You can find us on Discord if you want to
chat while we're reading. We are very active on Andrew Watson's Discord server, as we mentioned, so you can find a link in one of his video descriptions, I expect. Give us a thumbs up if you have enjoyed this video. It really boosts our morale if we know that people are enjoying it.
Yeah.
And give us a follow if you are enjoying our content.
Don't forget to go to hardysbooks.co.uk to find our stock of books.
Yes, because we do sell books.
Yeah.
That is why we're here. Head to hardysbooks.co.uk for some beautiful first editions, signed editions, special editions, etc.
We need to now hear from the man himself about what you should go and do.
Over to Mr. Joe Abercrombie.
Hello, I'm Joe Abercrombie, obviously, and I would like you to subscribe to Hardy's Books immediately, if not sooner than that.
We're going to have to retire this after this video, aren't we? Because we moved it so much.